There's a lot of questions in the news. It's kind of amazing, really, when you hear people talk about things like the pipeline that's coming down, that they're bringing oil. It's already partially been built, that they're trying to create to bring oil from Canada down all the way, is it into the Gulf of Mexico, Terry? Way down, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's where it would
go. So eventually, so that they can refine the oil, bringing crude oil in. What's that got to do with us? Why was there such political battle concerning importing oil? Hi, my name is Charles Vance. You're watching The Wealth Transfer. I'm along with Chief Strategist Terry Sacka, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and what relevance that has to the U.S. dollar.
Yes, and welcome everyone. Where we like to talk about global economics, biblical principles, and how to protect and preserve your family, because what Charles just alluded to, this pipeline is the Keystone Pipeline, which it sounds like it's going to get vetoed anyway, but this will be a battle. We'll see how the politics plays that out. I'm not a real fan of politics on either side, really. But it's important because we're trying to become energy independent. If we could actually be energy independent, and Canada being our next of kin, we were actually importing $700 billion a year in oil. So if we became independent, we no longer would have to do that. You have to figure that's about a $700 billion economic stimulus to the United States, which is pretty dramatic. But is there more to it?
Well, you'd be cutting off a bunch of countries that you were buying from. It'd be like one company being in business selling candy bars to somebody, and then another candy bar company opening up and saying, we have better candy bars and they're cheaper. And then you quit buying them from the company that you used to buy candy bars from. The first candy bar company is probably going to be hurting really bad.
Hurting, angry, potentially maybe go to war over it?
If they had the ability to do that, they might. I've never heard of a candy bar war, but it could be something along those lines, couldn't it?
Well, and this is the point here. This is exactly what we're talking about. We're trying to go energy independent, but...
Now, you keep saying we're trying to go energy independent, and who are you referring to when
United
you say
States.
we?
United
So,
States.
you're saying us as...
Americans.
Americans, like as individuals. Sure. We would love to be independent of the other countries if people knew what we know about it.
Yeah,
we would all want to be
why
independent.
would we want to get our oil or rely on Saudi Arabia, or why do we want to rely on Venezuela? Why are we relying on Venezuela?
People that basically hate us.
Yeah, that's what I mean. These guys are socialists over there. Hey, man, there's people over there standing in line trying to find toilet paper, and we want to go, we got to take them down, take them down so their people take them down so they get back to a prosperous, capitalist type of nation again. I mean, forget this socialism stuff,
Yeah. So it's important then whether oil's being imported or not being imported, because we've been getting oil from a lot of different places here in the United States. And if we start...
$700 billion worth annually.
Yeah, that'd be a bunch.
Well, think of $700 billion stimulated in our economy. Not only that, not are we not sending $700 billion overseas, but now the oil's being produced here, which generates jobs, generates taxes, generates income, where now the people doing the oil rigs spend money in the grocery stores and the local food places and all that. Think about that. Now, North Dakota, Montana, those regions, it's exploding in wealth because of all the oil boom. That's a great example. So I'm all on board with the concept. Who wouldn't be, right?
We preached out in eastern New Mexico, and when we flew over, I thought that there was a bunch of house plots when we were way up.
Oh, the oil rigs.
Oh, it was oil.
Yeah.
And they were just cut off in squares. They had roads around them and an oil well right in the middle of them. It was an amazing sight to see. Well, when we get to Hobbs, New Mexico is where we were, small town, not very big at all. They were hiring people $12 to $14 an hour at Walmart because they couldn't find people to work because there was so much money in that economy there in that area. The pastor that we went and preached for said, you want to make some money? He said, come out here and build some housing, build some condos. He said, people are flooding into this place just to work because there's so much work.
Man, that's like the old America. And
Absolutely.
so, the reason this all kind of comes into play is we see gas prices dropping, we see oil prices dropping, and we wonder, what does that really mean to us? How is that impacting us? Well, how does that have to do with the petrodollar? Is there a relationship with the Shemitah year and all of this coming? And we're kind of saying, yes, this is an engineered crisis. We love the fact that we're becoming energy independent, but number one, is it sustainable? I debate the technology is sustainable. I think fracking could be potentially long-term very dangerous. I don't know enough, so it's not about that. I'm just really saying that this is a short-term thing, it's a big political thing, and we showed how it's engineered in a lot of ways. So let's take it while we can, right? Prosper while we can. Let's go look at this, for instance. Now, there's major importers of oil, right? Look at who, really, look at this image here. It's number 49. Look at this image of who's really using the oil. This is, I mean, think about it. Look at the dark colors there. These are the major ones using the oil. Red, yes, us. Orange, yes, China and India. And then if you notice, a little pocket of Europe there. Those are the areas using the oil. Okay, you can take that off. The reason that's important, if you notice, we're the fire red country there. We use. Now, granted, we may be producing 9 million barrels a day, but we use 20. We're still having to import. We're the largest consumers of oil. China's not far behind. Matter of fact, many contend they surpassed us already in the consumption of oil. So there's that battle right there. There's that whole dynamic. China's moving in, and their gold and oil with us being the importers. So there's a lot in the political. Yes, thank God we are now producing some of our own oil, but it's only half what we really need. So there's still the dynamic. And being that China's right behind in India, they're the BRICS. There's dynamics in this.
But we're still creating billions of dollars worth of problems for other people's economies.
That's the whole point, yeah. So now are we in this fight? Now we're creating billions of dollars problems for the Venezuela, Iran. And I think there's more dynamics here, Russia. I really, this is so huge. But the reason I want to bring it up, it's complicated, but it's so important. Because if we don't understand that we're in a perfect storm of everything that's happening in the printed money, the global economy, the currency resets, I contend this next cycle that's coming this September, going into 2016, is going to be devastating if this isn't handled correctly. There's a half a dozen things that are going to set this off. So what we're going to go into today, and we'll finish up next week, is the dollar. And how vital, a lot of people see the dollar raging in strength, and they're saying, yes, our economy is great. Look at the low unemployment. I'm here to checkmate that, and I'm going to show the evidence. It's not strong. It's only by default it looks strong, and when you see the evidence, you ask that question yourself. Why is it important, though? Because when you see that the oil is going on like this, they're pumping up, and I'm really trying to illustrate, and I know Charles and I like to do this, we like to illustrate the information we're sharing with you is the truthful information. The world, our media, is spinning a different reality. We don't want the body of Christ to be caught in the wrong reality. And at the end of the day, obviously, you go anywhere to protect your assets. You go anywhere to preserve your family's wealth. We're here to help educate the body of Christ. Our main thing is education. Obviously, Cornerstone can service things. It's not the point here. The real point is the body of Christ being there for their brothers and sisters, surviving the churches and the ministries when this hits, because the perfect storm is setting up. It already has, by the way, since September of last year, and it's coming. It's brewing up. This whole thing with the oil, and as I'm going to illustrate the dollar's dominance right now, it's not strong. Not like it was in the past when it was real. This time, it's a smoke and mirror strong. And I'm going to show you how. So for those that ask, what can I do? How do we get started? What kind of information we need? We have assets. What do we do with them in the 401k department, IRA, or currency and such? Here's some areas you can.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.
The importance of understanding what the dollar is the U.S. dollar gets its value, its buying power value, or its strength and value in the market system based on its weighted measure against its top trading partners. So for instance, in our case, it would be the euro currency, the Japanese yen, the Canadian dollar, British pound, Swedish krona, and the Swiss franc. Those top currencies are valued. So basically, those currencies to our currency and how we're doing in our economies is what gives us the power and value. And what we're going to illustrate here is the reason the dollar is so strong right now is the top currency that we trade against that gives us our value is the euro. The next is Japanese. The euro is 40+% of the weighted measure. So if Europe economy is doing bad, that gives a lot of strength to the dollar. If the Japanese economy is doing really bad, that gives a lot of strength to the dollar.
Now, both of those economies are bad right now.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
That's what I'm illustrating
that's
here.
all over the news
I
if
know.
people are paying any attention.
That's why we're saying this, because what we're seeing is,
now,
and they're about 60% almost of the weight.
What's making their economy bad?
They printed the real
You mean
reason.
the same thing that's happening in America?
Yes. The reason the Japanese and the euros in America, that was not a slip because we're doing the same thing. Euro economies are bad. They have too much socialist policies to the people. So basically, like in, I think it was France and these countries, they're like allowed to retire in their 50s and they get these full pensions and benefits.
So it's entitlements.
It's all entitlements.
That are creating
That's correct.
the economy. Somebody's got to pay for it.
Thank you.
Years
That's
ago,
the whole point.
Here, let me give you a local example. Years ago, there was a gentleman that I knew that was working for a local steel plant. He got 13 weeks of vacation.
Wow.
After he was there, I think 10 years, and he worked there through his retirement. So I don't know how, he's probably there 40 years. I asked him one day, I said, who do you think pays for that 13 weeks of vacation? He said, well, I do. I said, how do you pay for it? You're not working. Well, he didn't have an answer for that.
Have an answer.
But he thought somehow he was entitled to that simply because there was somebody in their union that was smart enough to go in and negotiate with the company and get that for all of those guys. It was crazy. Guess what? That company's out of business now.
Well, you know, to put it in a more personal note, I'm from Detroit, okay? Look at the automotive industry. I don't even have to tell you, look at the city of Detroit. It's almost non-existent. I wouldn't step a foot in the city for nothing now. And I'm a union kid, so, you know, back off, I can say it. But the unions were terrible. Yes, protecting the people. Yes, I grew up with, you know, really nice income, middle-class family. I got, you know, full medical benefits and everything. Great. Yeah, that's wonderful. But come on, the amount of money that my father was making driving a forklift. Now, at the same time, I'm happy. Don't get me wrong, I'm for the people. But I saw that bad management and union obligation caused Detroit just to completely collapse. To this day, Detroit is no longer what it was, and it's so sad because what a beautiful city it was, especially back in the Motown days.
Let me tell you another story that's hooked directly to that company. When I first got into the construction business, I built a room on a house for the man that was the shop steward at that company. He told me, he said, there is such an entitlement mentality in this company now.
Entitlements, yes.
He said, I've gone in, he said, you know, I'm the connector between the company and the union men, the men that are actually working, creating the work, creating the product. He said, I go around, I talk to people individually. Said, look, the company tells me we're going to close down because we're losing money if we don't produce more. He said their response always, without variation, you make him work harder and then I'll work harder.
Yeah.
But until he works harder, I'm not working harder. And it closed the company up.
Yeah.
And that's entitlement, like you owe me something for nothing.
Well, they're tough jobs, Charles. I've been in the factories in Detroit, and man.
Listen, this was a nasty job.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But my point is when you get an entitlement mentality, you think somebody owes you something for nothing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to be had unless somebody is producing something.
And
you can't have all consumers.
That's
there has
right.
to be some producers.
And that's what's happened in Europe at an extreme. Now, we're doing it here too, by the way, but it's Europe we're concerned with because Europe, specifically Greece. Greece almost collapsed a couple years ago, and they were going to leave the euro. That's what caused all of this shift out of and the excessive money printing by the central banks, and they tried to save Greece as far as the euro is concerned. Because if Greece fails, we need to understand is, as Greece fails, their banking, who owns the Greek debt? Well, the Germans, the French banks own the Greek debt. Who owns those debts, those banks? The English. Who owns the English? The Americans. So it all starts to snowball. We couldn't afford the Greeks to go out.
How do we own those banks?
Bonds.
Okay, so they're buying each other's bonds.
That's correct.
So it's so spaghettied that if we let one of them go down, it's going to affect the other ones.
And what happened in Europe is they went through massive bond printing, money printing, bond buying schemes, and shell game schemes, as we showed you.
Who's buying
the European Central Bank.
So the European Central Bank's printing more money, and they're buying the bonds out to keep these people in business.
Problem is, Greece was small, a few $100 billion. Italy, which is next, trillion. So they can't. It's unsustainable. And the only powerhouse of Europe is Germany. Germany is the strongest country in Europe because they're exporters. Germany's willing to do this right now. How long? I don't know. So what we're saying is Europe is in such trouble. Their interest rates went negative, meaning they're forcing you to spend your money, because if you put your money in the bank, you have to pay the bank to put your money in. Now, does that sound like a strong economy?
So they know that you have to keep your money in circulation to make the system work.
That's right.
So they're forcing you to do that,
Yeah.
saying if you bring it to the bank, we're going to charge you to put it in the bank.
That's right. And so Europe is in such trouble. Their economies are in depressions. I say depressions, but recessions. Well, some of the countries. They keep trying to say it's getting better, but the data says it's not. So we're going to show the images to help you see through this. But you need to understand that because that's taking place, it's making the dollar go stronger, because the dollar's weighted almost 40% to the euro. So as the euro economies are having all this trouble and the euro's collapsing in value, it's making the dollar look stronger. The dollar is not stronger because the dollar is strong. Our economy is in horrible condition. The truth and the data says otherwise than what the media tells you. Why is this important? Because there's a reckoning coming. They're printing and faking and buying because they're struggling. And with all the other things we talked about, with oil and the petro and China and Russia and these pipelines and the Shemitah, there's so much that is brewing. It literally is like a match with dry tinder, and I sense that something may crack. Now, I give the powers to be, whether I like them or not. Charles and I, as we're talking about this, I don't really think they're going to let things collapse, because it just doesn't make sense for them. It'll be orchestrated. Now, they may not be able to manage to some extent, but they know this is engineered. And so as euro's crashing, we're going up, we'll take it, and then we'll start to come down, they'll go up. But I'm saying it's not going to happen that smooth. I'm saying there will be a jagged hiccup, as we saw before. What does that mean to you, though? The dollar looks strong, but it's coming back down. It has to.
Terry,
right?
This is really trading problems for problems, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
I mean, you're buying problems. Like, you've got a 50 that's got a problem. I'll say, I'll give you my 2 ones and a 10 for it.
Yeah.
So I got your 50 now, so my stuff looks bigger.
Yeah.
And you still look like you've got a problem, and I don't look like I've got a problem anymore,
right.
but I just bought your problem.
That's right. And that's what we're doing. So I'm saying we're all buying each other's problems. Now, how long can they do this? I contend not as long as people think, because I think an event is coming. I don't really quite know what, Charles. It's a spiritual thing at this point. An event is taking place that is going to freeze the economies. And in that process, those derivatives, everything starts to snowball. Because remember, this is a domino effect. And what does that mean? Our IRAs, our retirement accounts, our standard of living, our ability to support our brothers and sisters, our ministries, our churches, where are they going to be in this time frame? I'm saying that if we're not properly positioned, because when this happens, they're going to have to print trillions more again. Gold and silver are a reckoning, and you will see substantial value over time. It just has to be, because these currencies are designed to go down. So to be properly diversified is really important. So a lot of folks say, well, how? The who, what, where, when, why, and how to do this stuff, and where can we go? Go anywhere, but we are here for education purposes and to serve. Of course we can, but here's some ways you can do that.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.
Now, many of you may ask, they understand the euro as a currency, but who is the euro? So let's go to this image 51 so you can see what countries make up the euro currency, okay? Oh, that's a different one, I'm sorry. That's actually a supply-demand chart, which is really good. I wanted you guys to see that anyway. That goes back to the oil, but it shows you how close we are in proximity to what we get out of the ground. That's why the oil price crashing, you can tell it's all orchestrated. But here it is right here. The European Monetary Union, the Eurozone, all the red countries make up the euro currency. They have adopted the euro as the currency of their nation. The orange countries have not adopted the euro. They're in more of a float, if you notice UK, Sweden, the eastern regions. But the red countries are the ones, they're all in on it together. It's almost, they're like a big brotherhood now. And you know Europe, you get all those countries together like that, you think they're really getting along? You're now starting to see it break apart right now. So that makes up the euro currency as it is today, no. And the ones in orange have hung on to their own currency.
Who's printing the euro currency?
That's why I did earlier. Remember, Charles asked who's printing the euro currency. Belgium is where the EU, European Union, which is like the body of government over the euro, or the European Union, and the European Central Bank, the ECB.
So what happened to all the other the little central banks? Were they just
They're
absorbed?
all sucked into the ECB now. So they've given over sovereignty to it.
So you've said this a few times, that there could be a world currency reset.
Yeah.
And if that happened, then all of these other central banks would be sucked into like the World Bank and the IMF.
That's right.
And people don't even know those exist to some degree. But they are very powerful forces of finances in the world.
Yes, and basically right now in Europe, the little tiny country central banks are at the mercy of the European Union. Those bodies of governments, and by the way, they're just about insane. They even passed a law that you can't have balloons in children under 10 because they may choke. I mean, it's like they're nuts over there. But that's a whole nother story. But so the little countries, each country is given over authority to this EU body. And the ECB, European Central Bank, controls all the others. They're telling these countries what you have to do. They're telling Greece what they have to do.
Did they vote to do that?
Yes, because they were supposed to get benefits from it.
Who voted? Did
the people voted to join.
The people actually voted.
Yeah. So they all joined to say, you know what, we're going to join this team. What they thought they were going to get benefits from the trade.
Well, you can get anybody to vote for something if you offer them free food or
problem
free money.
Is, you know what? Here's the problem. They voted to join, but then some of them are dirty children, I guess you could say, right? You get a team, a baseball team together, and they all voted to go onto the team. Some kids show up with dirty clothes. They don't manage themselves well, right? And some of these countries don't manage themselves well, and Greece is the first one, and because they allowed people to retire at 50, and they kept giving all this social entitlement out, and it's causing trouble. And the reason this is
causing a problem for the central bank, the central system.
It causes problems for Greece, which causes problems for the team. Listen, if you got a baseball team and your first baseman is falling asleep and the ball keeps getting hit down the first baseline, right?
Yeah, you're in trouble.
So, right, and this is what's happening in the EU. Why is that important to us? When the EU is in trouble, it's making the dollar look stronger. But the EU in trouble means we're going to be in trouble. We're not independent. We are absolutely connected.
The maximum strength that a chain can have is its weakest link.
That's correct.
And people need to understand that
Yes.
if we're a part of this, which you've just displayed that we are buying each other's bonds,
Yes.
when these links start to weaken, then we've got problems.
And Charles,
it's not just their problem, it's our problem.
You couldn't have said it any better. And that is why this is so important to the body of Christ. Because these weak links in Europe, and we haven't gotten to Japan yet, is causing the euro tremendous instability. I almost contend, if I had to guess, Germany will one day break away and form their own currency. That's a whole nother conversation. But the weak euro is going to cause severe trouble for the United States, which means severe trouble for your retirement, your standard of living, your ability to support your brothers and sisters in the future. Because when the euro continues to do this, it'll soon come home here. When it comes here, it could be part of this perfect storm towards the end of the year here in the Shemitah. And I'm just really saying, make sure you're properly protected and positioned. Do one more. Go to 52 and look at the euro here in the last few years. This is just a chart of the euro. Look at that currency collapsing. It used to be strong. And look at how it's collapsing on the right there.
Is that in a trade value to
That's its trade value to the dollar.
national currency?
Yeah,
Or just to
that's
the
the
dollar?
euro currency. You can take that off. The euro's in a lot of trouble. It's going to leak over here. Our dollar's not strong. And we're going to continue over the next couple weeks showing you exactly why you need to be properly positioned and protected for the body of Christ to rise above. So when the revival hits after this next collapse, we become the power base and not the wicked of the world system. So if you haven't made Jesus Christ the center of your life, just ask him in your heart. He'll come and the truth shall set you free. God bless you.
The truth sets you free always when you live in the truth and know the truth, Jesus said. So I encourage you to go to Cornerstone Asset Metals website. There you can watch these programs on demand. If you know someone that doesn't get this station or this network, tell them about the website so that they can view the programs themselves. Terry and I are always here, this station. Next week, same place, same time. We want you to join us right here for the Wealth Transfer. We'll see you then.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.